Good day, everyone. For the continuation of our study on the Abrahamic Covenant, we will now taking into account the Genesis chapter 15, from where we have read from our last session from verses 1 to 21. And according to this book of Covenant Theology by John Scott Redd, it says here in his page 138 under the subject covenant ratification taken from Genesis chapter 15. It says that ever since the discovery of ancient Near Eastern treaties in the early 20th century, scholars have intensified their interest in and understanding of biblical passages clearly depicting similar treaty ratification ceremonies. As a result, passages like Genesis chapter 15 can be understood against a considerably expanded background of ancient practice. With that said, biblical interpreters must be careful not to over-apply historical backgrounds and cognate texts with any particular biblical text. The biblical covenants were intelligible to the ancient audience in part because they reflected aspects of current practice, but they must be read in their own biblical context and not reduced to the sum of extra biblical sources. The covenant ceremonies of the Bible traffic in common ancient practices, but they are also uniquely ordained by God for His purposes. And so we must trust the scriptural context to explain their parameters. So we always resort into the biblical aspect of whatever historical background or historical events taking place in a particular setting, in a particular generation. Now, to continue, the problem of Genesis chapter 15 is one of assurance. How can Abraham be assured, taking into consideration that God promised him that he would bless him, and from his offspring comes the blessings of many nations? So, how can Abraham, it says here, be sure that the Lord will provide him with an heir? To provide, of course, as the initial uh, fruit of that promise of God, wherein from Abraham comes the blessings of many nations. The question is a practical one that engages all the other blessings God has promised to him. Of course, without an heir, there can be no nation. How would God's promise to Abraham and his posterity or his offspring would be fulfilled without an heir coming from him? And without nation, of course, without an heir. Without a nation, however, there will be no inhabitants for the land. Again, the land is also a promise of God from Abraham and his posterity. Will the covenant begin and end with Abraham's natural lifespan? Yung bang pangako ng Diyos ay magsisimula lamang ba kay Abraham sa kanyang pagkakatawag at ito'y matatapos lamang ng kapag siya ay namatay na physically? These are underlying questions to the promise, credibility of God's promise to Abraham and his offspring. Now, to continue reading with the book, these concerns underlie the opening promise to Abraham. Fear not, I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. In Genesis chapter 15, verse 1. Now, at this point in the narrative, the problem of Sarai's barrenness introduced in Genesis chapter 11, verse 30 has not been solved. And this leads Abram to inquire about some signs of assurance. So the dilemma of the assurance of Abram now comes in. Perhaps following the logic of his wife's barrenness, Abram suggests an unfortunate solution in the form of his relative Eliezer, but the Lord confirms that it will be his own biological heir. Take note. Sa lahi mismo, magmumula, sa lahi ni Abram mismo, and of course with Sarah, his wife, magmumula yung takapagmana. yung magiging blessed offspring na ipinangako ng Diyos. Who will continue? Again, I would like to read it again. But the Lord confirms that it will be his own biological heir who will continue the covenant line. It is interesting to know that Abraham will again struggle with the temptation in the next chapter to solve apparent problems by his own contrivance rather than trusting in the Lord. Nevertheless, Abraham trusts in the Lord to fulfill his promises as he has in the preceding chapters, and that faith establishes him as a fitting covenant partner. Taken from Genesis chapter 15, verse 6, it said, and it reads there rather, that Abraham believed God, and it was counted unto him as righteousness. The Apostle Paul puts much importance in the necessity and singularity of faith for the Abrahamic covenant by noting how Abraham's faith results. Again, Abraham's faith in God and faith in the promises of God results in his justification. Even before the covenant sacrament of circumcision is mandated in Genesis chapter 17. Taking also noting Romans chapter 4 verses 12 to 13. And for our next or the succeeding study of the Abrahamic covenant, we will be dealing with Genesis chapter 17, noting the occurrence of physical circumcision among the people of God, particularly those belonging to Abraham's descendants. Okay, I will cut muna yung ating study on this part. We will continue with the same subheading, covenant ratification from Genesis chapter 15, and before going over with Genesis chapter 17 regarding this Abrahamic covenant. Thank you so much. And once again, to God alone, be all the glory. See you soon. And thank you so much. God bless everybody.